Axons Unleashed.
Morning everyone, my name's Robbie. I'm only joined here with the man, the myth, the legend Dan today, but we've got a very special guest with us. Welcome to episode 6 of season 2 of Axons Unleashed.
Absolutely. The one of the great mornings where we were here in our lovely office down on the Gold Coast, all gathered here together, and buddy, it's a great pleasure to be able to invite some extra people along again this week, to be able to sort of continue taking people on the journey of, okay, who are these key advisors or the key stakeholders that you really need in your journey as well?
Yeah, I hope you're really enjoying season 2, everybody. So yeah, we've spoken to property managers. So yeah, we're speaking to a property manager later this morning. We've spoken to an accountant, spoken to a mortgage broker, spoken to Jane, our build support person, spoken to a solicitor. So yeah, as we sort of grow that now, it gives us great pleasure to introduce Jason Mamby from InsuranceWeb.
Jason Matthey.
Yeah. You go too.
That too.
That's right, that too. I can go by whatever name you like.
Just don't
call me late. Jason M.
Jason M, yeah.
Just
Jason
don't call me late for supper as it goes.
Yeah, it's Jason M on the email. That's what it is.
How are you, buddy? Good to see you, by the way.
Yeah, great.
You and I sort of connected this morning, had brekkie.
Yep.
Although we're certainly going to tell our story about how we met shortly, but we haven't seen each other for probably 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
But we've known each other probably 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
So, mate, it's good to see you. And you haven't aged any more than 7 or 8 years.
I try to do things.
The moisturiser.
The sunscreen.
Mate, it's a very rare occasion that there's someone in the podcast studio with less hair on the top of their head than I do.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm feeling pretty good about life today.
I'm also trying to get the glare factor down here.
That's right. I should have polished it up this morning before we came in here.
It's only going to be for those people watching on YouTube. Everyone else on podcast, they don't care.
Yeah, so we're doing this. You can now go and watch these episodes on YouTube, as well as being able to listen on wherever you get your favourite podcast from. So it's really good, and it really supplements, I suppose, the other live elements that we do generally through Facebook as well. We
had a heap of clients here so here we are now speaking to you on the 27th of April, a couple of days after Anzac Day. We had a heap of clients here in our office, and a lot of people are now starting to watch the YouTube clips, and it's like, oh, it's good to see the expression on your faces, and like, because as you... Anyone who knows me or has been watching me for a while, as I'm doing right now, I like to talk with my hands and like get a little bit of expression going.
Whenever you're passionate or whenever you're really getting into something, you need to get your hands moving as well, just to be able to get...
You can't hit the fucking table because it makes too much noise.
Tap.
All right, let's get into it. Yeah.
Of special interest, Tamara isn't in the podcast studio today, so when she comes and listens to this, she's going to lose her shit that Robbie was just hitting the table with his hands during the podcast.
On purpose.
Exactly.
For a change.
All right, let's get into it.
Mate, so tell us, what's your recollection? How did we first meet?
Yeah, well, the former business that you were involved with, and we have a relationship right from the start when Axon started. So we were really pleased that you brought us on board for what we were already doing, and you could see value in what we were doing. Yeah. It's been a while.
I mean, it's a bit of a no-brainer, really. Like the simple and easy to understand but detailed risk management plan that we provide all of our clients. Yeah. Having your insurances in place can't stop shit happening, but it can certainly cure or fix stuff straight away, and it just gives you that bit of peace of mind that you're sort of wrapped around a little bit, and if Murphy's Law has struck, and even though you put prevention measures in place to stop something happening, if your tenants wreck the joint or the tenants do the runner or there's something, there's a fire or some someone goes through a wall, then hey, if you've got your insurances policies in place, building insurance and landlord's insurance, and we'll certainly go through the differences of those two this morning. You know it's going to be fixed and everything's going to be okay.
Well, absolutely, and we usually do the two together, the building and the landlord's contents. So certainly we know what we're doing. We're doing it for a long time. I've been around 30 years.
Yeah, I was going to say, give us a bit of a history of your personal experience in the industry then.
Yeah. So started carrying mail and delivering stationery around the office, and that was a long time ago.
Everyone starts somewhere.
Yeah. So back in the time before emails and carrying the mail from the post office to the office back in 1991. So we're talking, that was May 91. So I'm coming up on 30 years.
That's 30 years.
Yeah, 30 years. So
I joined the Army in January 1990. So if you're talking like early 90s sort of stuff, you're in fucking high school still, Stan.
Mate,
Don't worry about it. You're in primary school probably.
I don't think I'd even started primary school.
Well, there you go.
Mate, sorry, we've got a couple of old men in the studio.
Oh, jeez.
So,
No, mate, you're right. Times were different back then, and you know, certainly, I don't know how you got insurance policies, you know, quoted and posted out to everyone around the country like you do now.
Well,
I didn't really.
How did it used to work back then? Like you've been in the insurance game that entire time, so you've probably seen it develop. But when you first entered the game, how did the process sort of work?
When I first entered the game in 1991, certainly everyone just posted things. So it was mail, not email. It was just mail, and I was the guy that carried a Santa sack from the post office to the office. So I had this big sack on my back, and these days it'd be a work cover issue. But I mean, everything was through post. So on a daily basis, that Santa sack was pretty full. But you know, everything was by that sort of style of communication, and things have come a long way. I think around about the year 2000 is really when things changed in the industry, with the internet in the 1990s, and then from there the automated rating systems sort of really flourished probably around about 2003. So
yeah. So when you said you were starting back then, were you working with another insurance broking firm? Like, just give us a bit. Our listeners. So when you said you were starting back then, were you working with another insurance broking firm? Like, just give us a bit. Our listeners an understanding.
Yeah. So I've done both. So in my 30 years, I've spent half of that time in the underwriting area. So. That was with Zurich Insurance to begin with. I think when I first started, we were talking Guardian Royal Exchange. It's not around anymore. It was an English company. Then it was Zurich Insurance right up through working with different roles within Zurich. The last role I had was sales, which was working with brokers face-to-face, being the face of Zurich around the Brisbane area. So always been around this Brisbane area. Southeast Queensland.
Just for our listeners before we move too far, when you say underwriting, what does that actually mean, please?
So underwriting is they're the ones, that's the insurance company. So they're the ones issuing the policy. And the traditional sense of the word underwriting is somebody who creates the policy, people who have the power to change what is written. And the underwriting is underwriting the words that are in the policy. So that's an underwriter side of things. So you do have things in between where you get underwriting agencies. They act for the insurance company and they're an agency. And, of course, you get the brokers that are acting for the client.
Because in my mind, when I mean underwriting, I'm like, who's going to settle the account if money needs to be paid out? That's part of the underwriting as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's claims services involved. So you might get external claims companies, but ideally the underwriter, the people who put the words on the paper, they're also the ones generally, 90% of the time, they're the ones that are selling it financially. So
yeah.
But it sounds like there's that other 10% of the time where you've got a sort of a face to an insurance company, for example, that is actually underwritten by one of these major players anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll get, generally that is an underwriting agency and they may get the ability to pay claims. But you'll find that the financial security comes from the underwriter. Or you could say the insurer, the insurance company. There are other ways.
Who are the big players in the game at the moment? Because no doubt many of our listeners will be like, I've got a policy with those guys, policy with those guys, policy.
Yeah, they've heard of different ones.
Yeah,
exactly.
Go for it.
Yeah.
What's the sort of the top five, say, for instance?
Top five, well, CGU. CGU's always been a big player in landlords covers. So we're talking specifically with the rental and investment properties.
Sure. Yep.
That's CGU. You've got Blue Zebra was in there for a little bit. You've got QBE, QSure and QSelect are the ones that we use a bit.
Yep.
IAL, Hollard. A lot of people probably haven't heard of Hollard Commercial, but Hollard Personal, Hollard Commercial, they're fairly new to it, but we find they're doing quite a good job. IAL is really CGU insurance, but in a different format.
Great.
So
I guess generally got two options. I've got an investment property. I want to protect my property, protect the contents of the property, make sure if the tenants, do turn out to be poor tenants, I'm protected there as well. I can ring up Amy, or I can ring up QSure, or I can ring up CGU and do it myself, or we can get an insurance broker in place. Just sort of give us a bit of a background about why it's important that you are actually in the game and you're a part of the transaction.
Absolutely. We get that a bit. There may very well be a pricing difference, but the difference between paying that little bit more and getting the right advice and getting an insurance broker is your advocate. The insurance broker works for you, not the insurance company. So you're the broker's client. That is an important part of it. So we are looking after the client as though that is our own investment property. So we would want to do the best that we can for our client. It's got nothing to do with the insurance company. What we do is make sure the insurers are doing the right thing. So part of that process of dealing with a broker, you're not only getting the extra layer of advice, but you're also getting an extra layer of protection. If all things do go south and a broker has made a mistake in the transaction, you've always got that layer of protection on our professional indemnity. So there's that. There's also the claims process. So we'll touch on that probably a bit later as well, the claims. But you've got an insurance broker monitoring the claims process for you. So you've always got that extra set of hands on your side. And we've always got knowledge of what actually happens, what trends, who to go to. We do this every day, all day. So I think I look at it like an analogy of submitting your tax but not using an accountant. I look at it as going to court but not using a lawyer. I would be using an insurance broker when you're transacting an insurance transaction that you don't really know or understand much about. Get a broker working for you. Yeah,
it's a good way of putting it. And I mean, when we spoke late last week, you said that there was an incident in Stafford, I think, in the north side of Brisbane, where one of your guys, like, just give us that little, just tell us the amount of care that is taken by your office in helping people out that have got one of your insurance policies.
Yeah, that was an interesting one, of course. I mean, we don't get it happen very often where you get a total loss fire. But when we do, absolutely. When we do, we do take a lot of care, and we care about what's actually happened, of course. A lot of the time customers will ring us quite distressed, as you can imagine. I mean, this family just left the building with the shirts on their back. They lost the whole lot. That was only last week. And we sent somebody out there straight away. So Travis in my office took it upon himself to jump in the car, go see the client straight away and give them a bit of reassurance that we're there on the scene. That's if the property is in that southeast corner, we can do it like within a 2-hour drive or so. We'll get out there. So it just gives a little bit of comfort that you see someone face to face when such a big event happens. They've got a lot of questions, of course. You know, what do I do now? Do I get a little bit of an emergency expense? Do I put something on my credit card? So we go through a little bit of that process to give them some reassurance. And we also make sure that the right assessors have been appointed. So we have a look at who's going to do what. So our office swings into action saying, okay, who has the insurance company appointed, and do we agree with that? So we may look at it and say, oh, look, can we maybe have some influence on who we get appointed to that claim because we've had good experiences with those people before. So that's part of what a broker will do as well. And I really thought Travis did a great job there going out and seeing that client straight away. That client has other commercial business with us as well, and he's really looking after him.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. So when you say about having influence over the assessor that's going to go through there, when you're talking about that, is it because that assessor might be more generous towards the client, or is it because they just provide a more seamless process?
Oh, more the seamless process. So it's more that some assessors take, like any company, you know the ones that are putting more effort into what they do, they're more passionate about what they do. Also, you can judge as a broker the workloads of companies. So we can see that if we went to one assessing company and they were taking their time to do things, when we follow them up, oh, look, we're a bit snowed under at the moment, to be honest with you, Jason. Then we look at, okay, can we accommodate something as important as this with an assessor that can take that job on and really care about it? That assessor that did get appointed to that one lives in the same suburb. I think hats off to the insurance company for doing that, because we didn't realise we were checking it and double checking, is this the right person for the job? And then Travis came back and reported to me that that assessor drove past the incident in the morning and then was appointed to it by mid-morning.
Yeah, gold.
And that would become really important, I suppose, when you start thinking of like large-scale hailstorms, for example, that happen. Because if there's hundreds or thousands of properties that are impacted, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to just be in there with the masses. You want to try to be able to separate yourself from the queue so that you get looked after as a priority, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, sometimes when you get a lot of claims happening in one suburb, there's an advantage to having the same assessor. So a little bit contradictory to what I just said, because you're going to have one assessor loaded up, but it makes sense that they go out there and they're going down the street and visiting house after house and applying the same method, the same service standard to each of those properties.
It just becomes a little bit more efficient.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Mate, it's a really good example of sort of how much care you guys take. Literally drop everything on a Friday morning, go out there and, help a young family that's just lost everything. Like, what they were able to get some allowances for food, some allowances for clothes. Just, I guess this is the fine print that I know myself when I get an insurance quote come in for your car, for your contents, for the boat, for the jet ski, fucking whatever it is, right? The first thing we look at is the price.
Yeah.
And we're like, what am I actually covered for? And you have a broad brush of like what the bullet points are, but then there's a whole lot of stuff in the fine print that even the guy who's been in the property industry now for 18 years, I don't fully understand because that's not who I am.
Yeah.
So I do rely, and I use you. This is another example, ladies and gents, of skin in the game.
Robbie's.
Jason, you've been doing my properties and my portfolio now for many, many years.
Yep.
And I wouldn't be going back there if it wasn't getting the right level of service.
Yep, absolutely.
So, but I guess if I was those clients that we were just speaking about then, I would want someone to sit down and go, all right, you probably didn't realise this, but now you can go get this much on clothes. Now you're going to get this much allowance for food. This is how long it's going to take. Here's your temporary accommodation. Like, that would just make them feel amazing that you've just taken all that worry off their hands.
There's a lot of that sort of stuff that goes on. I mean, we've had claims even where people don't realise what their rights are in a claim. So you're looking at rent default. We had one tenant that wouldn't move out. They refused to leave the property, and they stayed on but didn't pay rent. Now, the insurance company at the time, this was going back 10 years ago, but I just remember this one vividly, that it was an awkward situation where the policy wording said, we don't pay a rent default claim until you get rid of that person out of the property. So the insurance company was relying on this. We were able to lean on them back through United Insurance Group, back through Steadfast Group that we're a part of. And the Steadfast Group basically leans on the insurer and says, hey, what's going on here? There's an intent in the wording to look after the customer. So go by the intent of what's meant to happen, not word for word in the policy. I think it's a good example of where going through a broker, you've got so many levels of protection that we can turn around and lean back on the insurance company and they take notice. If Steadfast had a big issue with them, that is a massive issue for the insurance company.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same reason, Dan, that you and I talk about going through a mortgage broker to get you, like, here's all my circumstances. You know what's in the market. Go get all the quotes for me. Go get, put together the package and the interest rates and the different sort of products and features of the policy, and come back to me with some quotes. So let's just maybe just sort of let's talk about the quote process now. What happens there?
Yeah, so we already know we have a bit of a panel. So we'd have at least 9 insurers on our panel. Some of them we know day to day just don't deliver the results, so we may exclude them, or we may put them down on the list as number 6.
By results, do you mean don't provide the right level of service, or the pricing is not right? The
pricing. So we know the price point, we know roughly where it should be. So we may get insurers that say, okay, it's $1,100, and then we'll get other insurers that consistently come back with $2,000 in that area. When we get an estate to look at, and we've done the homework on the estate, so we've already quoted a few in the estate, the panel starts to sort itself out, and you start to see who's who in the zoo for that estate. So, we'll come back with at least 3 quotes on that email, but there's possibly that we've done a little bit more work. So we may have done 5, but we're presenting the best 3, and that'll be service standards. We do look at the pricing, we look at the excess, So
what's covered in insurance as well?
Yeah.
Like I know the quote that I use in my process and risk brief, ladies and gents, for those that have seen that, that's the exact cutout of what you've provided me. And I saw I got more cover for the contents, more cover for the property itself. The excess was less and the premium was less. I just went with whoever it was. I have no allegiance when it comes to this stuff. I just want to make sure I'm covered at the best price.
We tend to pick the top 5 reasons. Like they're like the biggest reasons why you may want to choose one over the other. If there was something glaringly different, we would add that into it. But generally, we have a panel. We have the list that this one's coming up with this excess. This one's coming up at this price point. And the ones that are on the panel, they're no slouches. So if one of them's not good, they're not going to be on that panel.
So it's very much like a mortgage broker. You're talking about the products, the feature, the pricing, and that's exactly what a mortgage broker is looking for, is to make sure that the product that gets put in front of you is best suited for your individual circumstances based on that property, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what we do. You should expect that from your broker, and brokers should be passionate about that sort of thing. If they're not, they shouldn't be doing what they're doing.
Well, it's a reason why a client comes to you.
Yeah.
It's like, hey man, we want you to, here's my circumstances, here's the form that I filled out online. Jason and the team, go and find me the best product and like give me the option to choose still. You do that, right? You go, there's your 2 or 3 quotes that we've now filtered through for you. And then, it's ultimately it's up to us as the owner of the asset to choose which one we want to go through.
Yeah,
Happy days.
They're all going to protect your asset. There's no doubt about that. But some of them we may throw up a reason why you might want to consider one over the other. It might be that the excess is different, but the price is better. And then it would be, well, these two are roughly doing the same sort of thing, and your service is going to come back through us. So if your price point wants to be a bit sharper, you might be with a higher excess, and we give those options.
What about if, because some of our clients do this, they go out and they want to have a look around and go out on bloody comparethemarket.com or whatever it is that they want to ring up Amy and get their own quotes, right? I suppose, what would you recommend they do if they go and find a product that they're like, hey, I found this on the internet, why shouldn't I go with this? Like, should they bring that to you? And then what would you do with that if they brought it across to you?
Yeah, good question. So we love to see them come back in, because at least we got a chance to explain to a customer what it is that they're not getting. Usually that's going to be that layer of protection I spoke about, that service, that claim service. You're foregoing all of those things. So when you're talking about price, it's like, okay, well, do I want to do this without that level of service? Do I want to do this on my own? If I have a claim, am I happy dealing directly with the insurance company? Am I happy next year to do this exercise all over again myself? Which means, am I rolling it over with a double AMI or one of those, a UE or whoever's out there that's doing it direct? Or do I want my broker working for me to have a look at what's best in the market? We'll probably come to rent default later. I mean, I'd look at how they do it. Do they offer it? What levels do they offer it at? We have a look at those sort of things and make sure it's right for the client. Otherwise, clients on their own trying to work that stuff out, you might save $100, but you're sacrificing a fair bit. And I can't stress enough that layer of protection. You know, the ability to come back to a broker and say, hey, something has gone wrong here, and it's us that's in the can, not your property.
Yep. Yeah. It's funny. I know obviously the linkages between mortgage broker and insurance broker are very similar, as I've explained. You've got access to lots of different products for all of our clients, and you're the ones that do all the work. One of our other clients is like, I don't want to go through the mortgage broker. I'm just going to deal directly with the bank. And I'm like, hey bro, how you going with everything? He goes, oh, the banks are being fucking painful. And I'm like, I guess I can't believe how much work they're making us do. I'm like, haha, that's why you get a mortgage broker to do it. Anyway, let me know when you're finished and we'll be here for you.
But the thing is, they saved $80.
It's a mindset thing, isn't it?
But this is the thing, like you turn that $80 in and like it's a little bit silly, but that's like $1.50 per week.
Yeah,
and I don't know about you, ladies and gents, but I'm almost going to guarantee that every single one of you goes out and buys one bloody mocha frappuccino for $7 from Starbucks during the week or something stupid like that, which could easily as offset that $1.50 that you'd pay for someone else to do all the work. I'm pretty passionate about it because, like, as my clients know, I declare myself to be an exceptionally lazy person when it comes to this point, right?
Smart lazy.
Lazy. I like to think smart lazy, but I don't disclose that. But one of the major reasons that I go and use a insurance broker as well is because when the time comes that I need to make a claim, I don't want to have to do anything. Like, I want to be able to outsource all of that straight across to the insurance broker, and like, there's obviously a pretty close relationship that you then need to have with like a rental manager as well, right?
Well, we string things together. So our claims that we do handle in the broking office. So some brokers, you just got to be careful. There's brokers and there's brokers. Some will not handle a claims process. So I think if you were shopping around between brokers, get one that handles the claim process for you as well. And that is the checking that everyone's doing what they say they're going to do. So we're always, I mean, I got somebody in there now who came from disability support services, but we want to show that empathy in the claims handling process. So that the standard procedure for us is day one, lodging the claim, day two, follow up to make sure that there's a claim number allocated, who's the assessor, where's it going from here. Do we need to have a day three activity, or do we skip over to the day five because everything's now going the correct way? But because we systemize that in the office, in the claims process, everything just follows that same process, and people get held accountable to that process. The other thing I wanted to say, I lost my train of thought on that one actually.
I was just going to bring up the linkages between the rental or the property manager and what you're doing as the insurance broker once a claim comes in.
Yeah, so the property managers we work closely with, and I think where I was going with that too is that in our screen we have the rental property managers' phone number, contact details. That's all in there. Then we have the assessor's details. We have the insurance, who at the insurance company we're talking to, it's in there. So when the guys pull that up, it's all in front of them. So if they need to make a call between a property manager and an assessor, they can do that straight away and pull them in together. The other thing we do, and I've got the guys to do this time and time again to hold people accountable, is copy everyone into that email that you're sending out. So here's an update of where this claim's at. Now, if that's a copy going to the rental manager may read that and say, oh, there's something in there that I'm meant to be doing. But we're talking to the assessor. So primarily we're talking to the assessor, but then the rental manager's copied in. You're always then going to get everyone working together on it. So
for us, the Defence Force listeners and veterans, we can commonly known as the All-Informed Net.
Oh, there you go. That's
All-Informed Network.
It's the web.
Yeah. InsuranceWeb. It's the InsuranceWeb. No,
Yes.
I'll see what you did there.
Oh, yeah.
So when, just taking a step back, we spoke about sort of the process that you take after you receive sort of the claim. Like, who from an investment property in particular would normally initiate that claim? Like, would it be the landlord? Would it be the rental manager? Would it be the tenant? Like, just tell me about where we find out about this stuff.
Well, normally the tenant will go to the rental manager. So then the rental manager can make that claim direct through to our office. Sometimes I'll go to the insurer and the insurer will tell us, hey, someone's gone direct and made a claim. But we always activate the claim within a day or so of knowing that someone's gone direct to the insurer and initiated it. So there's nothing stopping people from doing that, but we always encourage people to get us involved and involved early. That's what we're meant to be doing. So sometimes people do think that they need to go direct, and maybe they get that from other brokers that don't give them the service. Or
you were going to say don't give a shit. I know you were going to say that, but you held back.
But to be fair, I'd like to think whatever the owners do, they come back to Axon.
Yeah,
that's what I'd like. That's what certainly our build support girls do. Is that even though we provide that 12 months of coaching post the property being built and a tenant's occupier or you occupying as an owner occupier, a couple of years down the track, just fucking ring us and we'll jump and like, all right, because we're the one that put it all together for them. So then we can sort of
notify
be that instigator anyway.
Yeah. It doesn't really matter where it comes from, as long as we get a notification of a claim. We'll always check back with the person that owns the property. All the time they're actually away on the Navy ships or so. We've had a few where we hadn't been able to contact people because they're out on
doing stuff.
Doing stuff.
So uncontactable for unknown reasons.
So but we get on with it. I mean that's actually just talking to that. That's another reason why you'd want to imagine doing something direct with an insurance company and being uncontactable for 3 weeks or so or longer. And then relying on your property manager dealing with the insurance company direct, it really does fit to do it this way.
Yeah, it's almost like you need a little crisis management project team.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah, and look, more and more as the years go by, we're getting more and more interaction between you guys at Axon, InsuranceWeb, the guys at the real estate. That interaction is probably the relationship we have is growing. So,
what's one of the greatest tools that the property manager can do that helps you as an insurance broker?
Yeah, good question. So we like to see that the property managers are doing these inspections. I think it would be a great idea if they did it a month or 2 weeks before you are changing, like the insurance is due. So if we were to say, I'll give you an example, like if we were to say, okay, we think you should change insurance companies. And at the time you make that change and you take our recommendation, but then something happens where maybe 3 months into the next insurance period, something comes up, there's damage to the property. But we're trying to work out which period that was in. Was it in the old company or is the new company picking that up? So I think these inspection reports, they're gold. We'll work more and more with the real estate to get these inspection reports done at the right time that suits the insurance.
Yeah. And I suppose one of the things you've just touched on there is also about the timeliness of claims, I suppose, because we all know that if there is something malicious that happens across a property, and we want to take all steps possible to be able to avoid that, but like things don't happen all at the same time. Like if something happens in bedroom 1, it might be at a different time to something that happens in the lounge room, that might be at a different time as a big hailstorm rolls through, for example.
Yeah. The hailstorm's probably easier.
Right.
To be honest, a hailstorm, we've got a point in time. The insurers will always look up the weather, the Bureau of Meteorology. They'll always look up BOM and say, okay, was that an event that actually happened in that suburb? So they'll always check that. So if a hailstorm rolls through or a storm, we know that that's what happened at that time. When someone comes in and says, hey, someone drew all over my walls, was it done maliciously? Was it, what's the difference between intentional damage where the people in the property think that they're improving the property, but you don't give them the go-ahead to do this sort of thing. So the insurance is...
And some parents are probably sitting out there going, that was artwork from my children. Thank you very much.
Yeah. We improved your property. You should be paying us for that. So, but I mean, think of the times that this happens per room. And think about how insurance is meant to behave. So insurance is meant to have a look at an event in time and then rectify that back to the situation it was in. If you have several incidents happening over time, is it fair that the insurance company just roll that into one event? And that's one of the things that I will be honest about that. Every insurer probably tries to tackle that and say, okay, do we just repaint the whole house? Do we call that all one event? Did that all happen in one afternoon? Because you just look at the fundamental way that insurance works, it's per event. So you've got to keep that in mind if you're not getting these property reports every 6 months or how they do them, that you don't know that that's been occurring over time, and that's something, I'm going to call it a trap that you fall into where you just cannot make a claim for everything. So
it's not like you can just get to the end of a tenancy and go, oh, we've now done an inspection at the exit, and I've got all of these things that are broken. Yeah,
the insurer fixed my house up now. So we get that a lot. We really do get a lot of people where the tenancy changes, and when you're renting your property out, it's like any asset, a motor vehicle that you've got as a rental car. There's going to be wear and tear. There's going to be little incidents and damage to property that you look at and say, okay, is this something that is an insurable event? Is it malicious in nature? Or is it just general wear and tear on the property? And I think that comes back to what kind of bond you get, what kind of relationship you have with your real estate agent. When people get pets in the place,
let's talk about that. Yeah, good point.
I always say increase your bond.
Yeah, right.
Because the insurers, they don't like damage by pets. You'll get some insurers that will put a little bit of a limit of damage by pets, but again, is it accidental damage by pets? Is it wear and tear? So, the insurers do try to give a bit, but it sort of starts to go back into that wear and tear on the property and a bond issue. That's what they call it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Residential tenancy bond.
yeah. So you wanna make sure. Someone asked me this only recently about, Jason, I've got someone lined up to put to go in, and they've got a couple of dogs, and what would your advice be? I'm like, increase your bond. Now, maybe the the estate agents don't want to hear that, but that's
so it just makes things a little bit tidier, because then you've got the bond amount that can just be drawn upon rather than having to make an insurance claim. Is that what you're saying?
excess.
Yeah,
correct.
you want to put more accountability on the people who have got pets to do the right thing by those pets being in the property, because inevitably you'll have problems if you're trying to make a claim at the end of it, saying, hey, the pets just went and did all this damage to the property. Again, is it one afternoon? Did they do that over time?
Yeah.
It flies in the face.
If you have a dog like pacing around the backyard, they don't destroy the entire backyard in one afternoon. They certainly wear through the turf over.
Some insurers will have a little bit of a give me, I suppose, on damage by pets, and again, they're probably looking at it in the way of, okay, it's accidental damage. But really, to defend the insurers a bit there, it like we said, it's more a wear and tear issue when you've got pets in the house.
Yeah. What about flooding? Because certainly
I was going to use children next. What about kids? What do you do with kids then?
You treat them like pets.
increase the bond.
You've got 4 kids, increase your bond.
Yeah. It's
It's the same sort of thing. Like
it is.
Some pets I would put forward. And certainly we've only got two little puppies, and they wreck the joint a whole lot less than what a couple of Billy Lids would run around everywhere, sure.
My wife Anne will vouch for that, because she'll be like, now we do a reset. When the children are back to bed at night, we reset the entire house so it's not chaos anymore.
Yeah.
And by the way, the advice that I suppose Jason's actually covering here is just generalist in nature as well. It's not saying, hey, you need to go and do this. It's individual circumstances apply, and obviously need to deep dive into those.
If people want to talk to us deeper about what is and isn't in the policy, and put, I always say, look, if you want to have a chat over the phone, we'll confirm it back on an email and say, okay, we're talking about this point, this point, this point. This is what we think. Your policy, this is how it behaves. So is there anything else that you need to know? And it should be a correspondence in writing, but also on the telephone. So
How good was that? This is how the policy behaves. No. Oh, I haven't heard that before. That's good.
Policy behaves
Yeah.
a certain way.
It's like the insurance policy is now coming to life.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's right.
It's interesting hearing you guys not hearing those terms, because they're terms that we use in the industry. The policy behaves like this. How does the policy respond?
It's like it's got its own entity.
Yeah.
Well, it pretty much has in using those terms.
Yeah. So children, just to get back on that, I'd say children and pets is very similar in a way of, is it a malicious act to the property? If it's a malicious act by a tenant, then you've got some cover. If it's wear and tear, and unfortunately little Johnny's decided to paint the driveway a different colour, you may have problems getting that through as a malicious act.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Bouncing back to that one you wanted to speak about, RT, I wanted to cover off on kids really quickly before that, because flooding is something that's near and dear to lots of people's hearts. Like, we've got clients who are looking at buying a property that probably resides at least 50 metres above sea level, right? And they're like, will we get flooding there? And I'm like, it's 50 metres above sea level. Like, you're on the top of a hill. I think you're going to be okay, but let's go and do the activity.
Yeah.
But we've also got things going on, like a little bit of global warming happening, sea level rising, everything like that is going to occur over the next sort of 10 years, 15, 20,
And
30
a lowering
years.
of risk tolerance.
Exactly
when
right.
it comes to that.
So, like, tell us what the sort of, what's the current status of play? Because especially when you do a development, for example, oftentimes they raise the actual level of the development as well, or they might lower it, and so on and so forth. So things must be changing pretty rapidly in that space.
There was a lot of work done after the Brisbane floods, 2011. So you would have thought we'd learn from incidents prior to that. But I think 2011 is when they really came out and said, hey, let's learn from this. There's got to be change. So one of the things that came out was a clear definition of flood. And also that every policy that is a personal retail policy nature has to have the flood cover included. Now, if for some reason the insurer says we just can't do it, a lot of them we see just bowing out of the quote altogether. Instead of saying, here's your quote and it doesn't have flood in it, they're saying, well, we just don't want to quote because we believe it's in an area that is susceptible, so we're going to bow out. So it does make it a little bit harder, more interesting in our office to get people engaged, like the insurance companies engaged when it's in a flooded area, an area prone to flooding. But the mapping is so much better these days. So there's tools online. I sent one over actually over the weekend. The Steadfast has got a tool.
I was checking it out yesterday.
Yeah. Did you run a few addresses?
I might have put a couple of addresses that I was looking at in there just to see what was what.
And usually then they're giving a grading there of 1 to 5 or so of what your risk is. They look at coastal erosion or coastal damage by seawater. So storm surge and seawater are something different again from flooding. So it's harder to be insuring against the rise of seawater. But certainly with flooding, which is normally dry land being inundated with water that has risen, that is the
like what we got in the 2011 floods. Ripping through Grantham and things like that out in sort of the western corridors.
And it always pays to just do hydrologist reports. We had ones in Townsville where we had a property up there, and I thought it's obviously flooding. Now I should be the advocate of the client, and we went down the path of can we get it in under not being flooding, the Ross River. The way that got over the line in the end was hydrologist report after hydrologist report. There was 3 reports done, and when the third one conflicted, the insurer caved in and just paid it. And we were talking $340,000 worth or so. Yeah. But it was trying to get that over the line, even though you sort of think, that's probably going to be flood.
So. Very interesting indeed, because I know that a couple of our policies for our clients have actually gone up in the last couple of years because the flooding maps have been updated.
Yes.
And now people think it's in a higher risk area than what it was when they first bought it, which is very frustrating because then that sort of adds, quite a few $100s per year to the insurance policy.
Yeah, a lot of these mapping, they have been redone over time. So if you do get that happening, and look, as brokers, sometimes we go back to the insurer and say, hang on a minute, you're pulling that one out of your pocket again. Is it truly that, or are we, are you just looking for a way of increasing things again? So we go back and challenge it when we think it's a bit ridiculous. And we can leverage with the portfolio that we have with the insurer and say, hey, okay, you want to do that, you want to increase it due to flood mapping, but on the way to the portfolio that we've already got with you, can you go easy on these increases? So,
yeah, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
And what about the last little bit? Let's talk about sort of covering of rent default due to a pandemic in the future. So that's obviously had a massive impact and change on the whole insurance landscape as well. Go for it, Dan.
Let's go back to when this probably really came into the spotlight about 12 months ago from now, when COVID-19 really hit and state governments introduced their rules and they said, hey guys, you're not allowed to evict people out, and rental default was...
Oh, that was interesting times.
Talk us through how that experience went from an insurance broker perspective.
It seems so long ago. Initially, obviously we had to field those sort of questions, and it was a moving landscape. Every week there was something different, and it really depended on what the Queensland government were going to do. So were tenants going to be scrutinised or were they not? That was really a big factor in it. If the tenants were scrutinised about did they really lose income, that really turned things. Now, insurers did back it. I know CGU, to give them credit for that, they said just send them in, we'll look at them on a case-by-case basis. When they pulled out of doing rent default altogether, you got to look at the insurers saying, well, the financial landscape's changed. We no longer feel as though we can offer the rent default cover if the exposure's too big for them. So things have changed, the exposure has greatly increased. We'll pull that back for now. We've kept a list of them. So we're looking at trying to reintroduce it as an optional extension. So you may see some of our renewals come out soon that say, hey, your rent default wasn't in, but we can include it now. Here's what you would have got if you just roll it over. Here's what you get if you want that optional extension. We always normally quote with the optional extension a rent default. If we're talking about ones that are in and out at the moment, I believe QSure is in. CGU we're still talking to and trying to get them to come back into it. But I don't think it's far away. I think it's another month or so before they come back online and start offering this rent default.
Yeah, I suppose it's bloody phenomenal at the moment that there is people that are nervous about the climate that we're in, because the property market's really boomed back on the back of sort of some of the government incentives that were around.
Yeah.
And trying to find a rental property as a tenant has been extremely hard, because the majority of properties that are being built right now are all owner occupiers.
Yeah.
So
it's a good time to invest in a.
Well, it's a good time if you've already got an investment property.
Yeah.
Trying to get an investment property, that's the issue we face every day.
Exactly.
So we've got dozens and dozens of clients on a bit of a holding pattern, just waiting for land to become available, the right property in the right area. So that's all right. It'll happen.
Yeah.
That's our job to make sure we're looking at it every single day.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. What else is new in the insurance space, mate? Like, what's hot off the press, you reckon?
I reckon rent default's the thing that's hot off the press. Other than that, there's a new thing coming out about unfair contract terms. So that'd be hot off the press, that insurers should have revised their policies and had a look at what would be deemed as unfair contract terms. Now, you can talk to a solicitor and say, here, have a look at this policy, and you tell us what you think's unfair or written the wrong way in that policy, so that we can comply with the legislative requirement of fixing up these unfair contract terms. If you take that same policy to another solicitor, and they can come back and say, here's 150, and another comes up with 10 or 15. So it's a little bit ambiguous at the moment, but they are looking at and working out what are we going to release to the market that now takes out any kind of unfair contract terms. And don't ask me what they're going to be. Don't ask me to give you an example.
No. We're just talking generic stuff here.
Is this more like they're basically trying to go out there and standardise some of the things that are included as well?
Yeah. It's things where it could be ambiguous what the insurer is trying to say.
Yeah.
And like I said, if you take that to different solicitors that look at it, they may say, well, that could be taken this way or that way. So everyone in the industry, all the insurers are saying, well, we've got to try and revise the policy documents. So you'll see a lot of updates. Even that one for Defence Force Homes, I think, it's a little bit out of date. So you probably see things coming through which will supersede it. And I think insurers like QBE are probably having trouble keeping up with all the changes that they need to deliver. So the products won't all come out all at once saying, here it is, it's done. But they did have a cut-off date that it was meant to happen by. So a few of them will be scrambling to change their policies.
It's another classic example. If you're doing this by yourself, you're not using a broker, guess who needs to keep up with all the policy changes?
Oh, yeah.
You do.
Yeah, you do. And we have a tool, LMI Policy Comparison. Now, that is something that all the Steadfast brokers subscribe to. And we can put the most up-to-date policies in, and it'll give a spreadsheet, and line by line it goes through.
Included, yes or no.
How does the policy respond?
Yeah. What's the behaviour?
What's the behaviour of the policy in this circumstance? So, and it goes through it line by line. Now, you don't want to be combing through that. We comb through that. But when we do it, when we have a panel, we can put up to 4 of them in there. So if we've got 9 on the panel, we've probably done it over and over again into the policy comparison. And then we have a look at how things respond. So if a client says to us, but I really need to have that extra cover for pets that are going to be at the property. So, okay, well, we'll spell out which policy is more suitable for you.
Mate, I reckon that once people go ahead and listen to this podcast, you're going to have hundreds of phone calls about pets.
Oh, no, I don't want to.
Or kids.
Pets and kids, I say, hey, wear and tear. But no, don't. I think the message is that you can't rely on the insurer to fix your maintenance issues. I know people don't want to hear that, but it is a reality. Insurance is the financial backing when things go wrong, but not things going wrong over a period of time.
Yeah, I almost start to think about it. It's like it starts to become our fallback position. You've got multiple layers of risk management the whole way down, but when everything is wrong and everything's gone out the window, you've still got your insurance to be able to help you out.
Yeah, and at an event at a point in time, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And definitely we're there to fix the financial repercussions So the financial repercussions. I have the SES in southeast Queensland on my website. Call the SES, get that tarp on the roof. We do get people ringing to say, hey,
Where's your tarp?
My roof is missing. We do tend to say to people, well, the SES is the first point of call. We are the financial end of that. So
deal with the actual emergency first, and then give you guys a call to like financially.
And we don't.
It.
What I ask people when they do make that call, I've got a bit of a funny story about a tree going through. It's never funny when a tree goes through your kitchen, but someone rang me on a Saturday, but I just rung for pizza. I thought it was a pizza guy ringing me back.
No. Oh,
so
that's good. Did you ring him back?
No. The call comes in, and I just answered it like it was a pizza guy.
And there you go. Normally you would have screened it. On a Saturday.
Next thing you know, someone's talking to me about a kitchen bench with a tree straight across it. We're not talking about pizza anymore. No. But that's on a Saturday, and the reason that happens is we do have that emergency contact in our website. Mm-hmm. So then my response is, but what do you want? What would you like to see us do right now? And I think for that client, they just wanted to know that they had a policy, it was going to respond, and we're going to lodge the claim. So I said, well, if the outcome that you want on a Saturday night, whilst it's still stormy, is that we can give you reassurance that your policy's current, it covers this sort of an event, and that it's going to be lodged and registered on Monday morning first up. Now, I send them a lodgement number straight away on a weekend to give them some peace of mind. I think that's what people are looking for, and we ask them, what can fix this situation for you right now that I can do, and then go and eat my pizza.
Love it. Mate, as we wrap up, I've got to say, from my perspective, that insurance is probably not the most sexy and riveting topic, but the way that you speak about insurance with as much passion as what we have about helping our clients, at the end of the day, you might not think it's sexy, but when you have a rain event or someone trashes your joint or your tenants have done the bolt, you need fucking someone to go in there and fix it. And mate, I'm really, I think, Dan, you're 100% right. Jason at InsuranceWeb, you're going to get plenty of calls after you to go, hey, can you now give me that sort of explanation about what's going on with my policy? And even if you're not an Axon client, you can just contact you on the website straight away. Yep. Pump your tyres in now, mate. How do people get in touch with you?
It's InsuranceWeb.com.au. That's an easy one to remember. Insurance on the web. InsuranceWeb.com.au.
Love it, mate. Good stuff.
You've practiced that before. Thank you very much for being here with us today, mate. Really appreciate you bringing your expertise in.
Great to be with you.
Thanks, Chase. See you.
Mate.
Hey, thanks for tuning into today's podcast. If you enjoyed listening, make sure you give us a 5-star rating, hit subscribe so you'll be first in line to get it in your inbox every week on a Tuesday. Whilst you're at it, open up your favourite social media app, be that Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn and YouTube, and connect with Axon Property Group. This is where you'll see us every day sharing the secrets of creating multi-million-dollar property portfolios and performing to the highest levels of your life. You'll get exclusive behind-the-scenes access to what it really takes to build a life that you love. You'll also discover how to secure your financial future as an ADF member or veteran, and I assure you your future self will love you for it. Thanks again for listening, and that's a wrap.